In the Baekryeon Clan, we have a saying: white petals for the public, black roots for the truth. My job was to be the rot at the root. I was supposed to end the line of the Lotus Heir before the clock struck 12. But then I saw the glint. A sniper from a rival house breaking the first law of the code. The Lotus must appear clean. I didn't jump to save Jin Park's life. I jumped because an unsanctioned kill is an insult to my craft. Now, the Seven Petals think I'm his shield. They're wrong. I'm just the only person in this room who knows that in this family, a throne is just a gilded coffin with a better view. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the blood-slicked luxury of the Baekryeon Clan, where every handshake is a contract and every hero is just a villain with better timing. If you're ready to see what happens when the assassin and the target are forced into the same cage, hit that like button, comment White Lotus below, and subscribe. Because in this game, if you aren't at the table, you're on the menu. The silence of the safe room was pressurized, the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. I stood by the reinforced door, my fingers grazing the ceramic blade in my dress, while Jin Park, the man who should have been a corpse, adjusted his cufflinks as if we were waiting for a carriage instead of a hit squad. "The petal of steel really has lost its edge," Jin said, his voice a smooth, cultured rasp. He didn't look at me. He looked at his reflection in the polished steel wall. "They sent Zaria Knox, the girl who never misses, and here I am, still breathing moe and taking up space. Tell me, does Alara Voss still tell you you're special? Or do you finally realize you're just a match she struck to burn down the house?" "Shut up," I snapped, my eyes darting to the thermal sensors above the door. "I saved your life. That wasn't part of the plan." "No, it wasn't," Jin said, finally turning to face me. He stepped into my space, his presence overwhelming the small room. He reached out, tilting my chin up with one finger. I could see the microscopic lotus tattoo behind my ear reflected in his dark, predatory eyes. "You're a loyal tool, Zaria, but tools are replaceable. That sniper wasn't a mistake. He was the insurance policy. If you killed me, he'd kill you. If you failed, he'd kill us both. Either way, the petal of steel gets to claim the throne and wash their hands of a messy asset." My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I wanted to deny it, but Alara's lessons echoed in my head. The clan is absolute. The individual is heir. "The public war has begun," Jin continued, dropping his hand but staying close enough for me to feel the heat of him. "Because blood was spilled in a sanctuary, the Seven Petals are no longer bound by diplomacy. It's an open season on the Lotus Heir. And since you're currently my only defense, it's an open season on you too." My phone buzzed in the hidden silk pocket of my gown. A heavy, localized vibration. My breath hitched. Only one person had that frequency. I pulled it out, the screen glowing with a single searing crimson notification. Black label. Status ghost. The room felt like it was tilting. Being declared a ghost in the Baekryeon Clan meant you were no longer a member, no longer a person, and no longer protected by the code. Anyone with a blade or a bullet could collect the bounty on my head. Alara hadn't just abandoned me, she had fed me to the sharks. "They've erased you," Jin noted, reading the color on the screen. He didn't sound sympathetic. He sounded like a man who had just bought a winning lottery ticket. "Which means you have two choices. You can stay in this vault and wait for the petal of ash to come and incinerate the evidence, or you can help me get through the high security vaults to the sub-level exit." "The vaults belong to the petal of gold," I said, my voice finally finding its cold, professional edge. They have the most advanced surveillance in the city. We'll be hunted by drones before we hit the first corridor. Then it's a good thing you know how to move like a shadow, Jin said, stepping toward the keypad. He punched in a bypass code that shouldn't have existed. The pneumatic seal hissed, and the door creaked open to reveal a corridor bathed in an eerie golden light. The petal of gold thinks they own the ice of this building. Let's show them what happens when the light goes out. We stepped out into the hallway, a predator and a prey animal forced into a lethal dance. We hadn't moved 10 yards before a soft mechanical whirring filled the air. A drone, no larger than a dragonfly, but carrying enough neurotoxin to stop a heart, hovered at the end of the hall. Behind it, a man in a liquid fiber suit stepped out from a gold-trimmed alcove, a sleek, silenced SMG raised to his shoulder. He didn't speak. In the gold zone, they didn't waste breath on threats. They just liquidated assets. I pushed Jin behind a marble pillar just as the first suppressed rounds chewed into the stone. "Stay down," I commanded, my hand closing around the hilt of my blade. The dress was a hindrance, the silk dragging, so I reached down and ripped a slit up to my hip. I wasn't a girl in a gown anymore. I was a ghost. And it was time to show them why the dead are so hard to catch. The air in the red banquet hall didn't smell like food. It smelled like old money and fresh ink. Jin walked into the chamber with the stride of a man who already wore the crown, and I followed a step behind, my hands folded over the ceramic blade hidden in my silk. This was the secret heart of the Seven Petals, the council that had spent my entire life turning me into a ghost. As Jin sat at the head of the obsidian table, the 6 other leaders watched me with eyes like cold glass. "You bring a ghost to a sanctified table, Jin?" The petal of gold sneered, his fingers tapping a rhythm against his crystal glass. "The code says she should have been incinerated the moment she failed." "The code also says no violence in the sanctuary," Jin replied, his voice a low, melodic threat. And yet, a sniper found a line on my throat. I didn't bring a ghost. I brought a witness. I felt the gaze of the petal of steel, my own master, my handler, the woman who taught me how to breathe without making a sound. Elara Voss didn't look at me with anger. She looked at me with the clinical disappointment of a craftsman looking at a chipped tool. Throughout the meal, they poked at me, trying to provoke a reaction, trying to make me break the clean peace of the banquet. They whispered about my failures, about the roots I'd come from, about how easily I could be replaced. I didn't flinch. I stood like a statue of bronze and shadow, realizing that their power wasn't in their blood. It was in the fear they sold to people like me. Later that night, as we retreated to the secured wing of the Park estate, the silence was shattered by a single, vibrating frequency on a stolen comms unit. I intercepted a transmission meant for the Petal of Steel's private enforcers. It wasn't a rival syndicate. It wasn't an outside hit. The voice on the other end was Rowan Hale, the sniper. And he wasn't asking for a bounty from the gold zone. He was checking in with the Petal of Steel. My world didn't just tilt. It disintegrated. My own mentors hadn't just ensured the hit, they had designed it. They wanted Jin dead to trigger a power vacuum, and they wanted me to take the fall so they could clean up the mess and look like heroes. I was never a daughter of the clan. I was a sacrificial lamb with a sharp edge. "They're coming tonight," I told Jin, my voice sounding like gravel. We were trapped in the estate, the surveillance cameras already going dark one by one. And they aren't sending professionals. They're sending a purge. Jin looked at his refined, manicured hands. He was a king of boardrooms and galas, but he didn't know how to survive a knife fight in a dark kitchen. "Then teach me," he said, his eyes meeting mine. "Teach me how to be a root." For 3 hours, as the perimeter alarms died, I stripped away his refinement. I taught him how to use the weight of a body against itself, how to turn a broken glass into a lethal edge, and how to ignore the pain until the job was done. When the hit squad finally breached the glass doors, they didn't find a terrified heir and a broken girl. They found 2 predators who had nothing left to lose. We fought through the hallways, a blur of white silk and black shadows, until the marble floors were slick with the very blood the clan claimed never stained the petals. The final confrontation happened at the Baekryeon headquarters, the White Throne Room. Elara Voss stood before the obsidian seat, a silver-plated pistol in her gloved hand. She looked at me, and for the first time I saw a flicker of fear in her cold glass eyes. "You were my masterpiece, Zaria," she hissed. "You were supposed to be the perfect ghost." "I am a ghost," I said, stepping into the light, my dress soaked in the red of the men I'd killed to get here. "I'm the one who's come back to haunt you. I didn't use a gun. I used the ceramic blade she'd given me on my 18th birthday. It was a blur of movement, the flash of silver, the sound of silk tearing, and then the heavy thud of a body hitting the floor. It wasn't a fight for the clan. It was the moment I reclaimed my own name. When the sun rose over the Chicago skyline, the 7 petals had fallen. The council was empty, the old masters erased by their own greed. Jin stood before the white throne, the weight of the regent's mantle finally settling on his shoulders. He turned to me, holding out a new crest, a lotus made of black jade and ash. "The system is broken, Zaria," he said, his voice echoing in the empty hall. "I can't fix it from the throne alone. I need someone who knows how to rule the shadows while I rule the light. Don't be my bodyguard. Be my petal of ash." I looked at the crest, then at my hands. I realized that to change the world that made me, I had to own the darkness that sustained it. I put on the crest. I wasn't a tool anymore. I was the architect. The White Lotus was under new management, and God help anyone who thought we were still playing by the rules.